So welcome to this tutorial. We're going to be going over the complete process into creating an automotive visualization scene within Unreal Engine. So let's go straight into it. First of all, there's a few ways you can source your model. Now, if you want to be cheap like me and not pay for anything, I go to Google SketchUp's 3D warehouse where they have a lot of people and community that have created models. Just be aware you're not breaching any copyright or user licenses and whatnot. But usually the stuff on 3D warehouse is free. You can also go to places like CG Trader, Sketchfab if you want to actually pay for models. This makes the process a lot easier with models that already have materials mapped and are usually more geometrically correct. For this one, I'm going to be using this Lamborghini. You want to quickly go into a 3D preview in the 3D warehouse just to make sure the meshes and the model is actually high quality. This is a very high quality model. You can see how many polygons it has. Anything over 100,000 is generally going to be pretty high quality. So I'll give credit to the guy who's made this, Henry. He's got links to his social media here. So we're using this guy's model, which is a very, very nicely built Lamborghini. So I went ahead and downloaded this SketchUp file. Now we need to convert this into a Datasmith. If you have SketchUp on your computer, you can put this into SketchUp, then export it as a Datasmith file for Unreal Engine. I don't have SketchUp, but I have Rhino. So I went ahead and dropped this into Rhino. If you have any other 3D software you might want to use to convert this to a Datasmith file, you can go ahead and do that. I don't usually directly import because you can't import SketchUp directly to Unreal Engine. So you got to find something to Datasmith it first. Or that's only for SketchUp files. If you got a OBJ file or Collada or something, usually that can go straight into Unreal Engine, so you can skip that step if you've used a proper model. But in my case, I haven't. So when you put this into Rhino, just want to quickly make sure that it's scaled correctly. I know this is set up in millimeters, so this looks proportionally right, and it's a very well-made model, so I assume it is at a 1:1 scale. So we're going to go ahead, highlight it, type in export, and I'm going to export this as a Datasmith. Unreal Datasmith, save textures as well. So there you go, that's successfully exported as a Datasmith. We can go ahead and close this. Now there's a bit of setup you'll need for your Unreal Engine document. What I like to use is the Automotive Materials pack. So they've recently updated this to support engines 5 to 5.1. So you just want to go ahead, search up Automotive Materials, go to Add to Project. If you've already got a project file but you need to launch a new project first, then come back here and then add it to the project and then restart your program. So we're going to go ahead and launch a new version of Unreal Engine and create a new project. There's a bit of an issue with the Automotive Material pack is that it's sometimes not available for the most recent version of Unreal Engine. In this case, I've got 5.3 installed, but this is only available from like 4 to 5.1. So I'll show you how to fix that in a minute. And what you're going to do is go to Architecture and go blank and then create a new project right here. But I've already got a studio project set up, so I'll just use that. It's going to be the same process. I'll make a completely new level so we're on the same page. Alright, so this is what it looks like once you've opened your project using the ArcViz template. Now, the problem with Automotive Materials is that I like to use this as it's one of the best material packs for Unreal Engine. So what you want to do is go ahead and close your project and then click Add to Project and download it. Now, depending on what kind of project version you're using, it may or may not work. So if you're using like 5.1, you can just click Add to Project. You can simply add it to your project. However, if you're using a later version and this has not been updated for it, there's a little cheat that I like to use. So what you'll do is go ahead and you'll download Unreal Engine 5.1 and create a new project in 5.1. Then go back to the Automotive Materials and add it to your 5.1 projects. Now, if you wanted to transfer those materials over to your 5.3 project, what you do is you go ahead into your Unreal Engine project, you go to Content, and there'll be a folder called Automotive Materials. You make sure everything is closed, and you go ahead and Control C, and go into your new project, go into Content, and you go Control V. And then that's how you get your Automotive Materials into your 5.3 version if it's not available for that. And then you'll go ahead and open the project after that. So this is what it looks like once we've opened our document. To make sure that the Automotive Materials have been installed correctly, you can hold down Control and Spacebar and click Dock and Layout for our content browser. And you'll see Automotive Materials. Go into Materials, Exterior, and you have all of your exterior materials just here. So that's worked. Now we're going to go ahead and import our car first. If you're not familiar with Unreal Engine, hold down right click and the WASD keys to move around the viewport, Q and E to go up and down, and you get kind of familiar with the controls. You can scroll up, scroll down to speed up or slow down. So at the top here where it says the little green plus, we want to go to Datasmith and go File, Import. Now we're going to import our recently exported Datasmith Lamborghini. Go Open. I like to make a new file solely for Datasmith, so you go right click, new folder, and we'll call it Datasmith. And where it says import options, I like to go to geometry, materials, and everything else can stay the same, and go import. Now if you're using Google SketchUp models or sometimes Rhino models, you can get an issue called inverted geometry normals. This is where flat surfaces appear inside out. We'll see if this has any geometry normal issue. It should be okay, but if it doesn't, I'll show you how to fix it. You see on our right hand side here, we can see our imported Lamborghini and it's under one actor. We want to go ahead and collapse everything so it's simple to see, and we can use the drag tool to kind of move it around. We'll just go ahead and delete our post-process volume as that's not needed for right now. And I'll use scale by pressing space to change it to scale. We'll just make our ground a little bit bigger so that our actual Lamborghini can be on the ground. So we'll just go ahead and move this. See, it's a very nice model and very detailed. Let's go ahead and move it so it's on the ground. This is going to be a very simple visualization. Now, I can't see any inverted geometry normals. Everything appears to be pretty good, but if you have like a bunch of things missing on your model, it appears, or it's inside out, I'll show you what I mean. This is how we fix it. So we go to selection mode and we go to modeling. You come down to the bottom, either scroll down or click this arrow, go to attributes, go to normals, and it'll say either fix inconsistent normals or invert normals. So if I invert this one, you'll see it flips it inside out so that the surface is on the wrong side. So that might happen to your model. So what you do is just do that and then click either invert or fix inconsistent normals and then press accept. And that will fix your broken geometry normals. We'll keep the lighting like this for now. Eventually we'll set up the studio lighting. So there's a few ways to apply materials. One is dragging and dropping, and the other is changing the entire instance. You can also change the lighting to unlit if you want it to run a bit faster. So we're going to go down to the bottom to our automotive materials, go to materials, exterior, and car paint. We'll set a custom color, but we'll use, say, just white as a base. So you can drag and drop that. You know, see it's applied that white color to our bonnet or hood, whatever you want to call it. Because we're going to make a new color, we'll go ahead, right click on our instance and go duplicate, and we'll just call it Lambo color. So as I said, dragging and dropping was one way, or you can click onto a panel that has the material, come down to the bottom right, and where it says materials, you'll see which current color it has. We can double click onto this. Where it says parent material, we can go ahead and drag our new color onto the parent. And so you can see that's now changed. Every piece of mesh that had that material has now been changed. So we've changed the entire color of the car in one go. And you can do that for any color. I'm not too sure what color we should do for this. So we can easily and quickly change the color just by doing that each time. So say we want to try out red, drag it to there. It changes our color to red. Maybe a blue. We'll go ahead and keep our color that we've set, and we're going to set a custom color. So you double click on the material instance, and the good thing about the automotive material pack is that they've already got these parameters, which makes it really easy for you to adjust. So I personally wouldn't recommend touching any of these orange peel, UVs. Maybe you can tick use object UVs if you want by ticking both of those. But I found that just keeping the parameters how they are is the best way to go. To change our base color, we can come up to here, and now you can see we can change our color and it will apply. So I'm thinking, I personally like kind of champagne gold, beige kind of colors. You can change it to be whatever you want, but I'll go with this color for now. Or maybe you can desaturate it to make it more of like a silver kind of gray. I'll kind of make a millennium jade kind of color, similar to those skylines. But you can play around and set whichever color you want. So we've set our color now. And we'll do the same thing for things like the carbon fiber textures. The good thing about the Automotive material pack is that they have a lot of range. So they have a whole section just for carbon fiber. We'll add this the same way as we did before, just by dragging and dropping it onto that. And it's now changed all the carbon fiber areas to the carbon fiber. For things like the wheels, we can go down to rubber, and they have tires, sidewalls. There's tires, sidewall, shiny. They got tread. Well, it all depends on how your model is set up, but for this one, we'll just be using this. Just go ahead and drag and drop that all around. See, this is a plastic color, but for our wheels, we'll use a custom car paint. Let's go with black. And drag and drop that on. So you see they do have plastic. So we're going to go ahead and go to plastic. And we'll just use a plastic glossy and drag that as a parent layer. So all of the black glossy parts on this stays like that. You can also go into metal or use like a black metal chrome. It all depends what you want to do. I think the black metal chrome looks quite good, so we'll use that. And now for our windows, they do have glass preset into here, so we'll go material glass clear. They also have a glass windshield. Go ahead and put that all around. I won't bother with the interior for now, but they do have an entire interior pack. So you have exterior and interior, where you have things like leather, suede. So we can like do suede seats or black leather. If you wanted to do the interior, we'll just do a simple. See, it depends on which model you're using. Some of them have detailed interiors, some of them don't, but that's alright for now. I'm going to go ahead and delete these number plates. Sorry to anyone in Brazil, but I just want to delete these number plates. There you go. You can see it has a mesh texture on here. So we're going to go ahead and replace this with an exterior mesh. Go middle. They do have a grille texture, which is semi-transparent. So you can see through that. This has no engine behind it, so we can just go ahead and use a box just to create something behind the car. Underneath the bonnet so you don't see through it. That just stops you from seeing through the car, and then we can just change this to a black metal so you don't get light coming through there. So that's looking pretty good so far. We will add some lights to this after we get the lighting set up. We'll just go ahead, switch this to unlit, and we're going to just enable snap and move our headlights up. And there should be a either headlight reflector, or I like to just use metal mirror for these little projectors. It makes it look a lot more realistic. And for the housing, we have that metal chrome, which is perfect. And so we can go ahead and select those glass wherever they went, and just drag this back down. There's also, if you go into lights, there should be a material tint clear, which you can add onto those, which just gives that a tint for your lights. Alright, so that's all the material set up for our Lamborghini. It's looking pretty good, pretty realistic. I'll say this is really good for a Google SketchUp model. You can take your time if you want to really detail every little thing. These little reflectors here, you can either use a reflector, or I'm going to make it illuminate in our render. So now we're going on to the lighting part. We'll set up the camera later For now though, I'll just set up a base camera for us. So you go here and we go up to the top left and we go create camera here and go sign camera actor. So now we've created a camera. We'll just leave that there for now. We'll set up our lighting first. So we want to go ahead and delete all of the lighting objects within our scene. Everything. Press delete. Change it to unlit. And so now we have our scene. Delete that. With nothing but the car and the one camera, no lighting. So firstly, we want to set up a directional light to be that kind of subtle illumination that we need. So we go to the little plus, go lights, and we go directional light. So here's going to be our kind of main subtle source of lighting. We can go back to lit, and on our directional light, see, it takes a while for the lumen to catch up to what we're looking at. Turn all the snaps off. So I'm thinking our camera will be probably from this angle. So we want to set up the light accordingly. Keep in mind that this directional light will simply be a subtle, really subtle illumination, which you just want to kind of accentuate the curves. Something like this. You can see it's kind of affecting that windshield. So you want to move it. This is going to be just a really, really subtle base light. So turn the intensity on the bottom right here. Turn it down to like 0.1. Maybe 0.5. It's using the auto exposure at the moment. So we'll be setting this up properly with the camera once that's set up. So there'll be one directional light there, and then what we'll do is we go to a rectangle light. This will give us a lot of good reflection. So we'll get a rectangle light, rotate it, and what I'm going to do is do 2 rectangle lights on either side. Just bear in mind we've got auto exposure on at the moment, so it's going to not be representative of our final result yet. But we'll make the source width kind of long, and then make the height really narrow. Make the barn door length, bring that in a bit to about there. So we just want 2 of these lights. Probably want a little bit of width on there. Make the barn door length just like 5, really subtle. So there'll be a 1 here. Then you hold on Alt and click the drag. Maybe 1 on the other side. And we'll set these up properly soon. We'll kind of just put them on the top to serve as 2 top lighting, and then maybe we'll do a point light, which will be like kind of on the back. We need to set up like the reflections and whatnot soon, but that works well for like initial lighting. We'll just quickly change the material of our ground. You can make it whatever you want. This is just a really simple scene. I'm gonna go maybe black metal chrome. You can see those lights are showing up in the reflection quite a bit. So maybe we'll change it to the anodized. I still like a little bit of reflectivity on the ground. Something like that. I know it's lots of lens flares and whatnot going off, but we'll fix that in the final scene. You can see you've got to be careful of the repeated textures. You can get pretty carried away with this, but I'm just going to go with like a simple metal bump for the ground. Actually, we'll go with a complete mirror chrome, because we'll adjust these lights and reflections soon. So we've got basically the light set up. What we want to do now is click on your perspective, and then go to cinematic viewport, and then click on your sign camera actor 1. Now we're viewing this through the camera. We want to come up to our camera in the outliner. We're going to change some of these parameters. First thing, we want to scroll down and then find lens, exposure, and then click these 2 and change it to manual. So now we have manual exposure. So you can see the higher the number, it's adjusting the exposure. So we'll put it to about 10 is good. If you go back to default viewport, then select your camera, we can now see where each of these are, and it's now the correct corresponding brightness. So you see, this is why we're using these rectangle lights, and you can adjust the barn door and the angle. So you can see you got the reflections on the ground there. But before we set up the actual lighting, we're going to go ahead and set up the proper angle. So we're going to add in a level sequence. So you go add level sequence, let's call it whatever. So by having a level sequence, this stops you from accidentally moving your camera somewhere and then it losing its position. So what you want to do is go track, active the sequencer, and add your camera on. Now we go ahead and first of all, we're going to set up our angle. So I want this to be in the middle, kind of from a low angle. We won't bother with vertical correction or anything at the moment. But our camera, the default settings are 16:9 digital film, which I'd say is the best one to use. Current focal length, so let's try 35. For things like Lamborghinis, cars like these, you want a more wider lens because it kind of shows those curves a bit better. We just increase our light for now, just so we can kind of see. So you just got to find like a good angle that works. You can also turn on safe frames if you're in the cinematic viewport. You can turn on the grid so we can actually see where we're setting up the camera. Make sure you've got your actual camera selected. So having a bit of difficulty setting up a good angle for this. We just want to try to get a simple angle. So I think a little bit of an offset on the angle, this will look good. So we want to go ahead and manual focus distance, just click on that for the eyedropper. Turn the aperture down if you want a little bit. Now on our level sequencer, we're just going to go transform and put in a keyframe. So now even if you accidentally move the camera, you can just come back to the level sequencer and it will keep the camera where it is. So we'll close that for now, although we will need to keep the sequencer open in order for the camera to stay where it is. But we'll just go ahead and move that away. So now we need to set up our lighting based on where our camera is. So what I like to do is just move all the lights so that they're at least in the viewport and you can see them. So now we can adjust all of these using either the arrows or using these on the right. We can change the location, rotation. So you can see we want to get a little bit of reflection on the car and change some of that rotation, and maybe I'll make a duplicate so we get a little bit of light coming on the bottom of the car from underneath. But then we don't want this to be so harsh, so we can change this down to about 1 candela. Same with the rectangle up here. If you accidentally move your camera, just click on your timeline to snap it back. So I'm going to set that up so it looks good. And same with this light just here. You can adjust it so you don't see the reflection on the ground if you don't want to see it. Now I'm going to set that up so it's kind of like that. And we have our point light back here, which will give us a little bit of additional illumination you see on those tires. You can move that to wherever you want. Set the candelas down a bit, maybe about 5. And then our final directional light, turn that off, it's completely dark. You want to illuminate it a little bit, maybe at 2 candelas. And there we go. So now that lighting is set up and that's looking really good. Now I want to take this the extra mile, so we're going to add some lights onto here. So we go onto our materials, we go to materials, exterior, we'll go to lights, and we're going to make a new one. I've got all these presets I've already made, but you want to go to material, lamp, white, duplicate it, let's call it Lambo lights, and drag and drop that onto here. So now our lights will actually be illuminated, those daytime running lights. You can do the same thing for the rear with the red lamp. So now we go back to viewing our camera. You can see those lights are a bit too bright, so you can open them up, Lambo lights, and just change the intensity down a bit. if we don't want any lens flare coming up from that. So there we go, that's our lighting setup. Everything's looking pretty good. One thing I have forgotten is you see these brake discs. There's actually exterior, there's actual brake rotor materials. I'm just going to quickly apply that. And same with the caliper, there's actual caliper paint materials. We just want to add those on. So that's all set up, and we're going to create a single export. What you want to do is go ahead and save everything first, in case it crashes while you're exporting. Alright, so we're going to go through and make a new single image sequencer. So where it says settings, unsaved configurations, we want to click on that. Now we want to set a custom playback range, so it's only exporting one frame. So start frame will be 1, end frame will be 2. Everything else is fine, although we will set it to like a 4K image. So we'll set this to 3840 by 2160. So that's a 4K image. Deferred rendering, you can leave all that. We just want to go setting, anti-aliasing. We'll make this subsample count like 10 by 10. The higher you go, the longer it's going to take, so just be careful of your computer. You want to click override anti-aliasing and set it to none. So that's using these two numbers instead of anything else. Engine warm up, I like to warm up the engine before it starts rendering, so go 64. This will export it as a JPEG. That's really simple, as you just go save. It's called a Lambo sequence. Accept. And now you want to do a test render because undoubtedly you're going to get like random lens flares that don't appear in the preview. You'll get sometimes too much bloom, you'll get some weird lighting things, so it's good to just do a test render first before we set up any of the proper lighting elements, then to see what we need to change, what we need to adjust. You can see that lens flare is coming through. So we're going to need to adjust that lens flare so it's not as prominent, but everything else is looking alright. We can set a background as well if you would like. So I've seen enough to know that we need to turn that lens flare down, but everything else looks pretty good actually. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and fix that lens flare. That's the only thing I can see wrong with the image, is that lens flare. So I'm going to go down to sound camera actor, come down to the lens effects, lens flares, intensity, turn the intensity down to maybe 0.3, and just increase that bokeh size to about 5 to kind of wash it out a bit. And I might add just a little bit of bloom from 0.6 to maybe 0.75. I'm going to go back up and we'll hit render, and this will be our final result. Now I've gone ahead and added a few little additional things to this image. I've left a link in the description to my website, The Architecture Elite, if you're interested in going to a little bit more in depth about this. So thank you for watching that tutorial. That's how to make a simple automotive visualization scene. Hopefully that was helpful, and subscribe if you'd like to see more tutorials like this in the future.